such as the 19th and 20th centuries, when financial capitalists had not yet seized control of state power, a form of capitalism in which the government did not intervene in the economy was most advantageous for them. This was because, within such a system, financial capitalists could freely expand their influence without being subject to state regulation. In other words, neoliberalism, the idea of leaving everything to the free market mechanism, and the concept of a small government that supports it were precisely what they desired. Naturally, it was these same financial capitalists who promoted such an ideology that served their own interests. However, once financial capitalists acquired power exceeding that of the state, they began to realize that capitalism based on merit and competition had become dangerous for them. This is because, just as they once rose through talent and ambition, new forces could emerge that might threaten their position. Thus, after gaining power greater than that of national governments, financial capitalists began to steer society in a new direction, toward a form of socialism. Yet, this is not the old state-controlled socialism of the past, but rather a corporate-controlled version of socialism that has begun to take shape in the 21st century. In other words, society is shifting toward a system where corporations, not governments, exercise comprehensive control. The recent global trends, such as the SDGs, stakeholder capitalism, decarbonization policies, and pandemic measures, all reflect this movement. Large corporations are increasingly seeking to control human life and private economic activity. This emerging corporate socialism represents the worldview pursued by the global elites who gather at the World Economic Forum, and that precisely is the true face of the New World Order. And as a means of maintaining that control, human decency is used as the most ingenious tool to avoid friction between the ruling elites and the general public. In other words, notions such as we must care for the environment, discrimination and exclusion are wrong, and we must not spread disease to others, are employed to regulate and control the behavior of the masses. Of course, the direction pursued by these financial rulers is fundamentally driven by their own self-interest and desire for domination. However, what must also be understood is that this trend toward a form of corporate socialism stems not only from greed, but also from their self-perception as the managers of human civilization, those who must take responsibility for the survival of humanity and the preservation of the global environment. In other words, unless we examine this system from both perspectives, its malicious side and its seemingly good-hearted side, it will be impossible to stop it.